Yo, what is up? Welcome back. Thanks so much for making it this far, pedal people. I appreciate it. Today I want to talk about where to look when you're riding a trail, specifically how to read the trail and what to think about when you're looking ahead. It's way more important than just spotting lines because it gives us the ability to be proactive when we ride, because we don't want to ride reactively. When we're proactive, we plan for what's ahead. We can ride more aggressively, we can ride smoother, we can ride faster, we can ride looser, we can ride more in control. But most importantly, it's more fun and it's safer. All right, so let's go out on the trail. Come ride with me. We're going to collect some data. I'll take that data back to SGHQ and I'll break it down. And we'll talk about where I look, how I look, and what I think about. Sound good? Peace. We're going to hit some intermediate kind of enduro-y trails. Be on the lookout too for a counterpart video to this where I do the same thing but on jump lines. I talk about where I look, why I look, what I think about when I'm looking when I'm riding jump lines.
Okay, here I am behind the keys. Let's take a look at this trail. Now, you guys will never ride this trail more than likely. However, all the things that I talk about will apply to any trail, not just this trail. So I'll try to make it universal when I try to describe what I'm looking at, why I'm looking, and what I'm thinking and why I'm thinking. Now, I've ridden this trail before. I'm not riding it blind, but I've not ridden it enough that I know the lines. I have not ridden it enough that I know all the nuances of the trail. The only thing I really know is what to expect as far as features go. I've not ridden it since last November or December. We've gotten a lot of weather, a lot of storms, and a forest fire since then, so I'm not exactly sure what trees are down and you know what debris could be on the trail. So that's something that I'm keeping in my mind as I'm riding. So the first thing I'm noticing here is that the trail is very overgrown. So I really have to be mindful where my pedals are at all times. When trees do come down and cross the trail, they trim them, and they generally just trim them to the edge of the trail here, which is good in normal circumstances when you can see the logs. But what happens is when these shrubs grow in, then they hide the logs. So if you get off your line or get a little wider to the outside of the trail and your pedal clips one of those logs that you did not see, it's going to be a rude awakening and it will stop you quick. So I'm coming in, this is real speed here. Up here, there's a rock, okay? So this rock here, you can jump off this rock. The problem is it's very hard to see what comes up after this rock. So right here, what I'm doing is I'm looking up ahead to see where the trail goes. I'm not focused on this rock whatsoever. I need to know first and foremost where that trail is going to take me after the rock. So once I can spot that, then I spot my line to the rock to try to set me up best for the best outcome after the rock. And that's what I'm doing here. So I'm setting myself up. I know where the trail is going now because I spotted ahead of the rock before I even thought about the rock. So that's an example of being proactive when you're riding rather than reactive. So before I worried about that rock, I worried about what was after that rock. And when I got a good visual on where the trail went after the rock, then I focused more on my line through the rock. Coming in, we're going to go back up to trail speed here in a second. Here's the trail speed of the rock. So as I come through here, I'm really looking as far ahead as possible. Now, when trails are overgrown like this, I can't see much ahead, but any clue that I can get, I need to know, because what I do is I look ahead, then I scan back. Look ahead, scan back. Look ahead, scan back. Now, here's a feature that I'm coming up on. I know of the feature. I know that you have to turn sharp into it to come off of it straight. It's a drop. You don't want to come off this drop crooked. So what I'm doing is I'm coming up to it and I'm not looking at the drop right now. Again, because I don't know what the trail conditions are, I'm looking up ahead here. So my eyes right now are not anywhere near here. They're up here. Now, mentally, I know I need to come in and find my line off of this. So like I have an idea of the line that I need to do, but that's in my peripheral vision, okay? So right now I'm focused up here. At this point here, I can kind of spot my landing and I know all is safe. So what I'll do is I'll scan back just to ensure that my line is how I want it to be and I don't need to make any body adjustments to, to correct bad lineage. And then once I come off the drop, so right here, I'm not looking down here at all. I'm looking up the trail. The problem is when you spot your landings on drops like this, it visually anchors you to the ground. So a lot of riders will just stare at the ground where they're going to land. And when you land, you're going to land harder than you should because you're anchored visually to the ground. And then you're going to really feel that impact, and then you're going to register the impact. Then you're going to look up. all that does is that anchors you to that spot, and then you become a reactive rider, not a proactive rider. If you're looking upward, so if you're looking forward right here, if you're spotting up the trail, it's going to do two things. You're going to be more proactive, and you're going to be actually more balanced than you would be if you stared at your landing. So I'm looking up the trail. Listen, I know I'm going to land. So I'm staring up the trail here. Again, now I'm scanning. Every time there's a slight turn, it opens up like a visibility for me. And when that visibility opens up, I'm looking as far ahead as possible and then scanning back. So here's a blind little feature. What it is it's a log, and it's crooked. So if you ride straight through this and don't lighten your bike or pop it whatsoever, what it's going to do is it's going to track you to the right. It's going to pull you off the trail. Now, if you hit this more perpendicular, you could hit it without that pull or that angle tracking that it's going to do to your tires. However, that leads you right into the bushes here. So the best way to ride this is just lighten your weight on the bike as much as possible. And what I do is I jump it or I pop it. Right there, I popped it. Again, before I do any of that though, I need to have my best guesses where the trail is going. So even before I get close to that log, I'm always looking forward. So right here, I get a brief glimpse of where the trail goes. It's obvious it doesn't go this way, so I get a glimpse of where the trail goes, and that just gives me like that intuition of where I need to go off this pop before I even can clearly see the trail. All times I'm looking for like little clues as far as where the trail goes. Here it is in real time. So looking up here, always looking up here, scanning back, looking up, scanning back, looking up, scanning back. Right here is a small little roll, but it comes up on you quick and it's off camber. So I pick my line through that. The very first thing I do is pick my line. So I pick my line because my line is kind of crucial on something like this. Pick my line, and now I'm looking up here just to make sure there's nothing else I need to deal with after the roll. There's absolutely nothing to worry about, which was good. Similar thing here. Now here we're coming into like some switchback turns that are hidden. Again, you can't see where the trail goes more than like 10 feet in front of you. So I'm just trying to get any clues that I can get. So I'm constantly looking for clues. Okay, so we're coming into a feature here. Now, I'm not going to talk about lines because this really isn't about how to pick line. It's more about where to look when you're riding a trail. So there are multiple lines. I could have taken the low line, but I take the high line here. But at any rate, no matter what line I take, I'm always looking up ahead as far as possible. And then I scan back just to make sure that I'm still on the line that I want. But I'm not anchored. My visibility is not anchored on any one object. So I talk a lot about looking ahead and scanning back in this video. So let me briefly describe what scanning back is for me and how I apply it. So when I look ahead, I see a feature or an obstacle or just something that I need to contend with or calculate. So in this example, we'll call it this rock right here. So I've identified it in my look ahead. Now my scan back is I scan back and I follow it a little bit with my eyes. And what I do that for is I ensure that I'm applying my line to it directly. I'm envisioning how I want to ride it. I'm determining like the line I want to take through and off of it. Now the scan back only happens briefly and to a point where it's like almost, I can't put a distance on it because it changes depending on your speed and on the trail. There are so many variables, but you know, I'll just say on average, it's probably half the distance from, you know, how far I can look ahead to where my front wheel is. So once it gets to that half a distance point and I'm confident that my line is going to match up with how I want to ride it properly, then the scan back of the obstacle, of the element, you know, of the feature becomes part of my peripheral. It transitions into my peripheral. So I'm confident already at this point that I'm going to ride it how I want to ride it for the outcome that I want. And at that point, I'm not focused on it anymore. I'm back to looking ahead on the trail. And because I'm confident in riding in my peripherals, it's just becomes almost behind me on the trail, even though I've not yet ridden through it. So a new rider might come into this and stare at this rock, stare and stare and stare and stare and stare until you've passed it like a hurdle. What that's going to do is it just puts you in more of a, like I said before, a reactive state. So once you've visually cleared that, then you go up here and you look at this element here, and you're staring at it and you're staring at it and staring at it and staring at it until you clear that. That puts you in a perpetual reactive state, which we don't want to be in. The crazy thing about our vision is if you stare at something right now, I mean, whether it's your finger or your phone or your keyboard, you'll recognize just how much around what you're focused on is blurry. And that's the life we live. We're just accustomed to the majority of what we're interacting with kind of being blurry. So the same is the case for when we're riding. So what we're focused on here, while the camera does a pretty good job of making everything sharp, and as we look around here, we're seeing everything sharp, really all this is blurry to me, okay? But when you ride enough and you practice your intuition in how to ride with good peripheral vision, you become confident in how you handle these things in your blurred peripheral vision. Going through this very chunky section. Now I'm scanning up here. I see the small little jump. Now right here, I'm spotting my jump. I'm looking at it right now. I'm getting my timing. Once I know that my timing is good and my line is good, then I'm looking up beyond the jump where I'm going to land. Again, I'm looking here. At this point, I'm not looking at my landing. I'm looking up here because I'm in the air right now. I know I'm going to land. I have really little control of exact spot I land in at this point. I feel balanced and I feel comfortable. And because of that, I'm looking up here. Again, I'm being proactive and planning for what's to come next. Now, I talked about how you can trust your peripheral vision, and you can practice that. So when you're riding just a basic single track or a super safe area, look forward, make note of things. It can be like roots or trees, but don't stare at them. But then register them when they go by in your peripheral, okay? But register them in a way that you don't redirect your focus to them. So it's almost like double vision. So your mind is looking at two things at once. So I'm here, I'm looking at an element. Okay, I've registered that in my mind. But now while I'm looking up here and registering new elements, I'm noticing when they pass my peripheral, or I'm registering them in my mind when they pass my peripheral. You can do this very slow, and just that practice will make you more visually self-aware of how to spot things ahead and how to relate them to your peripheral as you pass them. It's hard to describe, it's hard to explain. I'm probably not the best at explaining that, but I'm just trying to give you some tools to think about when you're riding just to help your vision on the trail. So vision doesn't only apply to like fast, fun sections, it also applies to climbing. So right here, I'm looking up here, I'm picking my line. I know that my line probably is best over here. You can't tell how steep this is. It's fairly steep, but there are a lot of like these crooked off camber roots, and what they're going to do is just kind of slide me out to the outside line anyway. So by looking ahead, I recognize that. And as I go up, I'm looking up here at this point. I see a lot of climbers, on my local trails, a lot of the younger kids that are in their bike clubs and stuff, when they climb up hills, they're staring at their front wheel. Like it's almost like they're counting the knobs on their front tire. They have no clue of what is up here, who is up here. And, it's something that I get a chuckle about, because really when they're climbing, they're in the zone, their motor's going, and they're just staring straight at their tire. But really, that's a bad habit to get in, because even when you're climbing, you want to always be looking ahead for changes in the trail. You want to look ahead to pick your line, and you want to look ahead for hikers and other bikers coming down multi-use trails. So here we go. I'm looking ahead. What I see here is I see a tree down. I see where the trail goes. And first thing I think about is, okay, this thing is, I'm riding over this thing's going to be tricky, because it's going to try to take my tire, my momentum, my wheels with where it's going right here when I want to go this way. So to bunny hop this or to get over this, I need to hit it more perpendicular. Okay, I've seen all of this far ahead, so I'm planned out for it. I'm not reacting to it, I'm proactive to it. So I'm going to pick my line, I'm going to come out a little wider. And in this instance, it's just because I have the bunny hop skill, it's easier for me to just bunny hop it. So I'm going to bunny hop it rather than ride over it. But that's something that you could easily have ridden over. The point is, because you're looking ahead, you're planned for that, and then you pick that perpendicular line for it rather than that one that's more parallel with it that's going to trip you up. So this section here opens up a new section of trail. I always forget where the trail starts. It's really hidden somewhere in here. In my mind right now, it could be here. It could be, up over this rock. It could be there. It could be through here. So I'm coming in with that uncertainty. And because of that, I'm constantly scanning. And here's my cue. Okay, right there's where I recognize where the actual trail is. And I'm registering that in my mind right now. And you can see I looked ahead as far as I could, as far as visibility would offer. But even then, in that instance, it took me a little wider right here when I registered it than I wanted to be. So I'm a little closer to this rock than I wanted to be. I'm not dangerously close. I didn't feel like I was going to clip my pedal on it, but ideally I would have been further over here. Coming in fast here. I'm always looking ahead. Right here, look ahead, scan back. So right there, this was the point here where I recognized that right here is when I first see this little branch that's down on this rock. Now it's small. It's not gonna, cause me to endo, but it is an issue that I have to deal with because it could get hooked up in my spokes. It could get hooked up in my derailleur. So I spotted that way ahead, and it would allow me to pick my line a little bit higher and get over where it's a little bit closer to the rock rather than right here. You can't really tell, but there's a good 6 or 7 inches between it. When you ride over a stick like this and there's space under it, it's going to bounce and do things. If you can keep it from doing that bouncing, that's the best case scenario. So I ride high up where it's pinched to the rock. And then here brings me to a little bit of a rough section here. So what I did at this point is I figured I'd be a good Samaritan and stop and go and clear the trail. Because again, this thing is not, detrimental. It's not going to cause an OTB, but it could hook up, again in your wheels and in your derailleur and cause issues. So I cleared that out. And then I realized that trail, for the spirit of this video, to ride stuff that's more relatable for the majority of the viewers, that trail is a little bit more advanced. So I'm trying to make this video relatable versus me look rad. So I go back up and I make a change of plan and ride a trail that's a little bit more relatable. Don't worry, it's still fun and progressive trail. Coming down through here, the speed picks up a little bit. Again, I'm worried about pedal clips at this spot because there are a lot of blind turns and there's a lot of tight growth around pedal level. So I'm just looking ahead, scanning back, looking ahead, scanning back, looking ahead, scanning back. Always looking ahead, scanning back. Trying to figure out where the trail goes by looking ahead as far as possible. I get clues all the time. I'm looking for clues all the time. Here's one thing about body position I want to talk about. So when you come down through like chunky stuff and you lean the bike over, you're going to realize that leaning the bike over pulls you through turns better versus, keeping it upright. When you lean your bike over in chunky stuff like this, now you don't get a good idea how much I lean the bike over from the helmet cam. If it were on the chest, you'd get a good idea. But just know that when you're leaning the bike over through blind, chunky turns, you really have to be careful that you don't get held up on the front end. It's really easy to run into something that just stalls your front end out, which puts you over the bars. So to mitigate that, you just want to remember to be heavy in the heels, heavy on the feet, and light on the bars. You do want to be more front weighted, I think, because what that'll do is it'll ensure you have traction up front. But just know that with that front weighted posture, that you're more susceptible to getting hung up on stuff that could put you over the bar. So have a real strong lower body position, real low heels, and prepare for that and keep that in your mind. So that's one thing I think about there. So we're coming up to some faster sections of single track. Again, looking ahead, trying to determine where the trail goes so I can scan back and pick my line. The more you ride, the more intuitive it becomes and the faster you can do it. All this stuff here just wants to clip your bars. So you just have to register all these things that could clip your bars when you're riding trails. Here, there's this route right here that I want to make mention of. I spotted this route. These routes are on every trail, but I spotted this route way back here. But what this route just wants to do is push your front end this way, slide your front wheel that way when I want to go that way. So that's something you need to always look out for, is things that are going to take the momentum of the direction of your front wheel or your rear wheel and change it. So we want to make sure that we're going to continue to go this way. So I try to hit it a little bit more perpendicular. You can see right here, I changed my my trajectory to hit it as more perpendicular as possible, because ideally I probably would have wanted to flow around that turn and not make such a sharp apex of a turn. But I sharpened it out a little bit to get over the root right there. So here I am coming through. So here we got a rocky section. So I'm trying to get an idea of where the trail goes, because I'm coming into this with some speed, and I just need to make sure that I want to be proactive and know where the trail goes at all times. So looking ahead, scanning back, coming through this fast. Now, as I ride chunky stuff like this, I'm thinking about where I want to be light and heavy on the bike, okay? So it's kind of like pumping through sections, but when you're riding rocks, now it doesn't look super rocky, but there are hidden rocks under this dirt. And by looking ahead and scanning back, I get an idea of where I want to be light on the bike and where I want to be heavy. So it's a subtle bouncing motion through this. It's a subtle pumping motion. We got some very, very sharp rocks. There's a lot of pedal art on it, probably some derailleur art and some rim art. Anyway, I don't want to add to the art, so I'm picking my line through here. So I'm going to go wide around this guy here. And then because I looked ahead, because I'm always looking ahead and scanning back, I was able to identify this little issue here and pick the proper line through it. Now, my tire's 2.5 wide, so that gap there is probably about 3 inches wide. So we hit that gap because we knew it was coming. We could plan for it. It mitigates the potential for a flat tire. It does all sorts of things when we're riding proactive. So here's where I'm really pumping through. I'm really heavy and then light, heavy and light, pushing and pumping through all those rocks. Coming through this rocky section, there's a section where I'm light, and then I get heavy right here. Again, always looking ahead and scanning back, looking ahead, scanning back. Because I looked ahead and scanned back, I was well prepared for this rock here. At this speed, there's no beeline for me to go around. I'm going off this rock, and I know I have like these goalposts that I need to get through. I don't want to boost this rock. I don't want to pop off this rock and look awesome. What I want to do is I want to get back to the ground as quick as possible, because I have to turn to the right up here. To do that, essentially what I do is I just absorb the rock as best as possible. You see, I stand tall, and then I let the bike come up into me, and then I'm real loose on my arms. I give with my arms, because again, I'm not popping, I'm soaking this up. By giving with my arms, I'm absorbing all that energy that rock is pushing into me. I'm absorbing it so it doesn't redirect me upward or outward. I want to be redirected back downward. So by absorbing it, I'm really sucking up all of its momentum, and it's going to bring me right back down to the trail so I can regain control. Right here, regain control and adjust my line. Again, always mindful of what my bars could hit too. This is a section here where I'm light, heavy, and light, and heavy. I'm pumping through it for speed and control. So when you do the pumping thing, a lot of folks think about that it just helps give you that speed boost through a trail, but what it also does is it gives you control and it retains your balance. So when you're riding through a trail like this and you've retained your balance, it really allows you to be strong and ride the trail confidently, and again, be proactive, and it just helps you ride it not only faster but safer. It really helps with traction too. When you know where you have to be heavy on the bike, will give you the most amount of traction possible for braking and for turning. You know, a couple different lines through here, so there's probably better lines than what I took to do this with it, but we're just riding here. We're trying to be as proactive with uncertainty as possible. is a bit of a faster section of very like small, loose rocks. You can't see, it's probably steeper than it looks in appearance. Right here, ideally what I want to do is scan forward just to make sure there's no trees down or there's anything that I need to, really be concerned with. When I know that that's not the case, then it's just scan back, pick my line and let it fly. Try to be off the brakes as much as possible, because when you're off the brakes and like super chunky fast stuff like this, your suspension works way better. You get over that stuff quicker too, so it's less impactful on your momentum, your balance and whatnot. So you just kind of skim over it when you go fast. A little bunny hop over a little rocky gap here. So again, what I'm worried about here is pedal clippers and things that I need to worry about, like logs down and stuff and squirrels. I saw a squirrel just go cruising past there. So, to avoid that sort of thing, like there's logs down and stuff, I just always looking ahead. When you come in fast with momentum like that, the faster you go, the more you want to look ahead, obviously, because you can't correct the lines and you can't slow down if there's something that you were not expecting on the trail. So we're looking ahead. Now here's a rock with a roll, and then it's got to drop over here. But I take the roll on the left. But what I'm doing after I decide what I'm going to do is I'm looking up here just to make sure there's nothing I need to worry about. When I'm confident there's nothing that I need to worry about up here, then I pick my line off the roll. Once I know that my line is correct, then I'm looking forward. And in this instance here, this is pretty steep. I know it doesn't look like it on camera, but it's almost straight down into like a G out. So I'm actually spotting right here this whole time, spot, because what I want to do is dive with my shoulders. Now, it's hard to dive with your shoulders with any accuracy if you're looking up here. So in this instance, am looking right here. I'm diving with my shoulders. Now, once I'm coming in for the G out or where the trail flattens out or the bottom of the roll, then I start to look through it. What that'll do is it'll help me find balance. It'll help me not anchor my body to this point. Now here's where I'm looking up and through it. What that does is just lets me have full control when I come out of it. Here it is at full speed, spotting it, spot, look through, okay? And then I'm looking upward. All right, so that's that, folks. So if there are any takeaways from this video I want you to have, it's this. So yes, you do want to look ahead as far as you can. By looking ahead, you can be a proactive rider, okay? So you identify where the trail goes. You identify, any potential hazards or features that you need to contend with and you need to calculate in your mind. But while you're looking ahead, you're also scanning back, so you're continuously reading the trail as it's presented to you. One other thing is you don't want to stare at things that you don't want to hit, so you register them in your mind, and then you move and focus on where you want to go and what you want to do. You're just registering the obstacles in your mind, but you're not focused on them, because as soon as you focus on them, then you're anchoring yourself to them, and that is not a good way to ride. Then you're riding reactive. Anyway, I hope you got something out of this little discussion. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching. If you like this, give it a like, hit subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Thanks so much.